has Mike Gordon from Phish been like the biggest thing that's happened to you?
I would say that's, yeah, definitely up there. Him and like, because like King Gizzard's blowing up right now too. They're all over the place. I think they're still a little more niche, but yeah, like Mike Gordon, I have some friends who are like big time Phish fans. Like we're talking, getting close to like 100+ shows. My cousin actually is one of the OGs. He was at Big Cypress and all the good stuff in the early days. But yeah, so like it's been really cool to come back around to that. Like growing up, they were never really on my radar. Yeah. And now that I'm like really like more connected to that community, it's like, and it's however you feel about the band, that scene, that community is like really cool. It's such a very real thing. Yeah. And like now that we've worked with Mike for going on probably a little over a year now, like I just see all of like the paraphernalia everywhere. I see like little donut stickers on car. Like I just didn't notice those things before. And I'm like, there's a lot of Phish fans just out there in the world, like just doing their thing. He's been really cool to work with. Like I was a little worried with how sort of like eclectic he can be and like that he might be high maintenance or like not like a diva, but I was just like, how is this going to go? Because ultimately like what he requested of us is a little bit more outside of my wheelhouse. Yeah. But as I have been talking about, like I like to be pushed outside of my comfort zone working with other artists and folks. So we've built 5 basses for him. We started off with 2 and those were kind of like, let me see if I like these. He didn't know which model he wanted. So he's like, let me get one of each. Then we changed like the scale length a little bit. Then we changed the pickups and the preamp. So we just like started making these like incremental changes. Yeah. He's very scientific in that way of like change 1 or 2 variables at a time. So like I know what's actually happening as opposed to like blowing it up and starting from scratch. So it's been cool. And with these last 2 5-string Armitage basses we've built him, we've dialed it into where he's very happy and he's like, this is kind of like where I want to stay. Now he just wants like, different sort of iterations of that bass. It certainly opened up another audience for us, building some more like active 5-string instruments and stuff too, which is cool. So, and I've gotten to go I've gone to like 8 or 9 Phish shows in the last year, which is not something I ever thought I would say. Sure. Yeah. Not exactly my scene, but I've had a lot of fun. Yeah.
I mean, I have always liked Phish enough, and we'll kind of go through phases where I will listen to them a lot. Yeah. I sort of found that it's way easier to get people to not be dismissive when you like help them understand that they're much more of like a prog rock nerd band than they are the kind of like jam band that people don't think that they like. Totally. Tell me about how that relationship like kind of got happening, because he was a Modulus guy for so long. Like, long time. Was like one thing, right? And a very specific thing for a long time. To switch to something else is kind of like a seismic change.
It's another scary thing too, because people pay attention, like in the Phish community especially, like they are the type of, like we were talking about Chili Peppers, like no one's paying attention to the instruments on stage. In the Phish community, they are. And so Mike is friends with Jonathan Coleman, Friendship Wizard on Instagram. Oh yeah. An awesome bass player in Philadelphia who's just we've become fast friends. I've built a couple of instruments for him. He had a 5-string Midwestern 2, very similar to yours, and brought it to a Phish concert backstage with Mike. Mike really dug it and was like, hey, can I like pull this thing out during one of the encores, and ended up bringing it out on stage. And immediately like all the, the subreddits and stuff were like, what was that? Like, what's going on here? Yeah. So that was like Mike's first introduction. So I have to thank Coleman for that. And then he got in touch and came over to the shop in Chicago when he was in town, however long ago that was. And we kind of dialed in a game plan. Yeah. And it's been interesting to see the different opinions, because at first a lot of people were like, people don't like change.
Of course not.
Which is weird with a band like Phish, who's like always changing and always trying to push the envelope. but again,
yeah,
they do
not that.
But they do have their sound, just like any good band.
Yeah.
They like, you know what Phish sounds like, and modulus was always a big part of that. And I think, you know, Mike was just ready for something different. And the first couple basses, it was kind of like people were like, I don't know, this doesn't sound like, you know, what we're used to. And then as we got kind of closer, we like honestly ended up steering closer towards the modulus sound in as much as you can with a Serek bass.
Sure.
So it was cool to kind of like meet in the middle somewhere, and he's really happy. And now we're seeing a lot of positive feedback from the fan base as well. So
yeah, I can imagine that an active electronics situation was probably a necessary thing there.
Totally.
Like would have been missing from the early stuff.
Yeah. One thing I noticed right away about Mike is that he very much likes to be in control of his sound, to the point where I don't, in the most recent tours, I think he hasn't had this, but when I first met him, he had an iPad on the side of the stage, and he was actually mixing his own bass sound in front of house. Like, and not the gain, not the like overall level, but like the EQ.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not getting enough, like, 50 hertz. I'm going to like slide that up right now. And like that kind of stuff. And you could hear it. And it was like, wow, that's pretty trusting of like front of house to let him go at that as well, and not like be like blowing up some speakers. And I think maybe they've reined that in a little bit, but that's a big part of having the active preamp as well. And he's a guy who's going to slap and play with a pick too. And so being able to dial in a little extra frequency somewhere, is important.